Move on to the nutritionist part and to welcome Ms. Clare Liu. Again, many thanks for coming us at a very short notice. Ms. Liu is a board-certified renal dietitian. Renal dietitian being very special and very different than a regular dietitian because we are such complicated and very demanding patients here. Now, in addition to being a registered dietitian at Satellite Dialysis, she has extensive experience, but she received her Bachelor of Science in Nutrition Science at UC Berkeley, locally, and her Master's in Science in Clinical Nutrition at New York University, and has extensive clinical nutrition experience since 2007. Ms. Liu is currently a renal dietitian at Satellite Dialysis and has been so since 2011, right? And prior to that, she was a registered dietitian at Kindred Healthcare. So thank you again. Oh, and one more reminder, let's try to hold the questions till the end, where we have a Q&A session.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for spending your Sunday afternoon here. Can everybody hear me? Okay, great. So today I will be talking about nutrition needs through the continuum of CKD. So raise your hand if you believe this statement is true. What you eat can help you control the buildup of waste products and improve how you feel at every stage of kidney disease.
True.
Raise your hand. Great. So majority of you, and that's wonderful, and that's what we're going to talk about today. So following a diet is not easy, and especially what we talk about today. But I promise you that it is worth it, and you will feel the difference. So here are our goals. We want to maintain nutrition health at an optimal level so you can feel great energy and prevent infections. We want to prevent the buildup of waste products from foods you eat. So like Dr. Galani was saying, the things you eat will break down into urea, and a lot of urea retained in your body can make you feel sick. We want to balance fluids and electrolytes. So if you have too much fluid on board, it increases your blood pressure, makes it harder to breathe. You can have swelling in your legs, and it just has more work for your heart. So we don't want to do that. And also certain electrolytes messes with your heart and your bone health as well. And we want to preserve kidney function for as long as possible, whether you're at stage 2 or stage 4 or already on dialysis. I met somebody who said that their GFR actually increased, and she was wondering, where is Ms. Joan? Ms. Joan? Yes, so her GFR actually increased just by walking and exercising and losing weight. So preserving that kidney function is important because it's important and for you to stay off of dialysis. And even if you're already on dialysis, whatever function you have left is important to hold on to, and we'll talk about why. So there are two major ways to do this. First is control your blood pressure. And the most important way to do this is to limit your salt intake. We're going to talk a lot more about that in a little bit. And then if you have diabetes, to manage your blood sugar. So avoiding or limiting desserts, candies, sweetened beverages. So instead of drinking juice, eat the fruit instead. The fiber helps, there's less volume, less sugar. Eat consistent meals to prevent wide fluctuations in your blood sugar. Pay attention to portion size. So if you have 1 slice of bread, that's okay, right? But if you have 5, that's really going to increase your blood sugar. And increase physical activity, like Dr. Galani was saying. So just exercise, and that has benefits to your blood sugar as well as your blood pressure. Our blood sugar goals is fasting is 80 to 130, and 2 hours after meals should be under 200. Keep in mind that what we go over today is going to be general because our recommendations are based on your lab results. So, and the diet instructions will differ based on what stage of kidney disease you're in, what kind of modality you choose, and your lab results. So for those of you on dialysis, you get your labs drawn every month, and the dietitian will come around to talk to you about what to change this time. Maybe if your potassium was high, 6.2, we'll talk about avoiding high potassium foods. And if you did such a good job, and when we recheck it, it dropped down to 3.2, then we'll tell you that you can eat a little bit more. So we're not crazy, we don't change our minds, but we tailor what we tell you based on your lab results. So I really recommend those of you who are not yet on dialysis to find a dietitian who can talk to you about individualized results. And Dr. Glani has somebody that he refers to. And also Marianne does too. All right, so let's get started looking at calories first. Calories provide energy to keep your body running. It's like gas for a car. So too much will cause you to gain weight, and too little can cause you to lose weight. And while some, this might be beneficial for some of you who want to lose weight, but we don't want to lose muscle mass. So we want to pay attention to that. We base how many calories you need on how much you weigh. So if you see here, across the board, you need about 30 to 35 calories per kilogram. And this is based on standard body weight. If you're overweight or underweight, we use an adjusted weight. The difference is for peritoneal dialysis, because the dialysate, the solution that you use to do dialysis, has sugar in it, and it has varying levels of sugar. So depending on how much of those sugar bags you use, your calories might be different. So we do include that in there. So let's take a look at an example. If Mr. B weighs 150 pounds and there's 2.2 pounds in a kilo, that means he weighs 68 kilos. So if we look here, 30 to 35 kcals per kilo is about 2,000 to 2,400 calories a day. And here in PD, assuming that this is just a very random number, 200 calories from the dialysate, then he can only have 1,800 to 2,200 calories a day if he wants to maintain a stable weight. And then after a transplant, you may need less calories because some of the medications you take may cause you to gain weight. So again, it's individualized. So protein. The body uses protein to build and repair muscles and tissues, maintain bones, skin, and hair, and also to make enzymes, hormones, and other body chemicals to fight infections. Every cell in the body needs protein. And we measure we use albumin as a measure because it is the major protein in blood. Our goal is greater or equal to 3.4 before dialysis, and once you start dialysis, we actually want to have greater or equal to 4. And this is because there have been studies showing that higher levels of albumin actually prevents hospitalizations and mortality. So before starting dialysis, it's important to limit protein intake, what Dr. Glani was saying earlier. And this is, we want to limit to 0.6 to 0.8 grams of protein per day, per kilo, sorry. And then when you're on dialysis, this protein needs, more doubles, right? 1.2 grams per kilo. And on PD, because you do dialysis every day, more frequent, you lose more, so you have to eat more by mouth. 1.2 to 1.3 grams per kilo. And then in the acute phase after a transplant, so that's anywhere up to 2 months after your transplant, you need to eat much more, 1.3 to 2 grams per kilo. That is because after a transplant, that's major surgery. Your body has been under a lot of stress. You want to replete the protein stores, so much higher needs. But after that, once you've sort of recovered, then you only need about 0.8 to 1 grams per kilo, which is what the general population needs. So here, back to Mr. B, he is 68 kilos. So before dialysis, he only needs 41 to 54 grams of protein, which is not much at all. On hemodialysis, 82 grams per day. And then on peritoneal dialysis, 82 to 88 grams a day. After a transplant, it goes up to 88 to 136 grams. And then in the maintenance phase, down to 54 to 68 grams a day. So what does this look like in terms of food? So a lot of foods have protein, but high quality protein is better because they have complete protein and generates less waste products like the urea. So the sources, of course, are animal protein like meat, fish, poultry, and eggs. And 1 ounce has about 7 grams of protein. And then there's also plant-based protein, and that includes beans, lentils, tofu, nuts, and seeds. And plant-based protein has about 7 to 9 grams of protein per half a cup serving. And for the plant-based, it's important to, again, be individualized because these foods have higher levels of potassium and phosphorus. And for some people, it might be okay, but for others who are, watching and your lab results, it's important to take that into consideration. Oh, so in the example that we were just looking at, Mr. B, before dialysis is 41 to 54 grams of protein. That translates into maybe 6 to 7 ounces of protein a day. So that's very little, right? So if you go to a steakhouse and you order a steak, it's likely 8 ounces of steak or even 16 or bigger. And so that's really very little protein. So you have to spread it out throughout the day. Next, let's talk about fluids. The kidneys regulate fluid balance. And if you have too much water in the body, the kidneys will try to get rid of it by generating more urine. If you don't have enough water, then the kidneys will concentrate your urine, so you will reabsorb some of the water back. So this is why it's important to preserve your renal function, because we restrict fluids based on your urine output. So if you're making more urine, you won't have to restrict fluids as much. So anything liquid at room temperature counts as a fluid. So all beverages, anything you drink, soups and gravy, ice cream, sherbet, popsicles, gelatin, and ice, everything that melts. So before dialysis, your fluids should not be restricted. And that's because you might be on diuretics causing you to pee more, and you want to keep those kidneys perfused. And on hemodialysis, because you're only getting dialysis, most of the people who go to in-center 3 times a week. So the fluid restriction is 1,000 milliliters plus what you urinate in 24 hours, okay? Because everything you drink will stay in your body until you get dialysis. So that's why it's the most restrictive. On peritoneal dialysis, you are doing dialysis every day. So the restrictions are a little less. So we just want to maintain balance on peritoneal dialysis, depending on how much ultrafiltration you get. After a transplant, again, not restricted because that's assuming that your kidneys are working well and it can maintain that balance on its own. So 240 milliliters is equivalent to 8 ounces or 1 cup. And 1,000 milliliters is equivalent to 32 ounces and 4 cups. So if we look at this example, on dialysis with no urine output, that's 1,000 milliliters of fluid a day, or 32 ounces, or 4 cups, 4 8-ounce cups. On dialysis, on hemo, and you have about 500 milliliters of urine output a day, that means you can have 50 ounces, or 6 cups a day. So what does that look like in real life? So a can of soda is about 12 ounces. That's 1.5 cups, not just 1 cup. A bottle of water has about 2 cups, and a can of Progresso soup, a little bit more than 2 cups, 2¼ cups. And then if you go out to have a drink at Starbucks or McDonald's, Burger King, 7-Eleven, they're gigantic, okay, the cups. So at McDonald's, a small is 2 cups, and it goes all the way up to 30 ounces. At Burger King, their king size is 40 ounces. So for some people, right, that's a lot of fluids. And if you drink that all in one sitting and you're on a restriction, then that could be all that you can drink in the entire day. So what helps some people is to find out what your fluid restriction is, or if you have a fluid restriction, and then get a pitcher and fill it up to what you need for the entire day and just work off of that. And then if you have something else that is not in that pitcher, then you measure it and you empty it from that pitcher. And once you're done with it, then that's it. No more fluids throughout the day. So it's important to talk about salt when we talk about fluids, because they go hand in hand. Sodium regulates the amount of water in the body. The more salt you eat, the more water is going to stay in your body. It's going to hold on to it. So healthy kidneys can get rid of the sodium in the water, but it's much harder when your kidneys don't work well. So salt is in almost everything. Even if it doesn't taste salty, it probably has salt. And eating too much salt can increase your thirst. Then you'll want to drink more, and then your blood sugar is going to be higher. And because salt holds on to water, you're going to have some swelling. And then all this overwhelms, the heart and the lungs. So before dialysis, we, start talking about a lower sodium diet. So limit your salt intake. Don't add salt to your food. So start getting into that habit before dialysis. But on dialysis, it's so important to stick to a 2-gram sodium diet. So that's 2,000 milligrams. And then after transplant, some medications can increase the blood pressure. So we really want to still keep, your salt intake in check so that you don't develop future cardiac issues or future kidney problems. So of course, salt comes from table salt, sodium chloride. Does this surprise you that 1 teaspoon of salt is more than what you're recommended to eat in a day? It has over 2,300 milligrams of sodium. So don't add it when you cook. And avoid things like garlic salt because it has salt in it, and sea salt. Don't be fooled. Sea salt sounds fancy, it sounds healthier, and people prefer that. But it's actually got the same amount of sodium, similar amounts of sodium. And be careful for the salt substitutes. Instead of using sodium chloride, they use potassium chloride, some of them. And if you are trying to limit your potassium intake, you can run into trouble.
I just one question. I'm sorry for interrupting. Again, I'm not sure if there might be a myth or something, but there's been studies that say there's different types of salt, like sea salt's better than regular salt. Mm-hmm. Is that true?
No. So like I said, it's made a different way in the processing, but the sodium content is not different. So sea salt, table salt, too salty, don't use it in cooking. Okay. All right, so other sources of sodium include condiments, things you add like soy sauce, fish sauce, teriyaki, barbecue, ketchup, pickles, and olives. Super salty. Then there's processed foods like deli meats, ham, bologna, salami, roast beef, chicken breast, all the deli meats. Cured meats like bacon, sausage, hot dog, even Spam. And fast foods and frozen meals also have a lot of sodium. And then finally, canned foods, like canned soups, canned vegetables, because it's used to preserve it, right? You don't have to put it in the refrigerator, so the salt keeps it safe. So what do you guys think is highest in sodium? A cup of noodle, 1 cup of corn flakes, a slice of cheese pizza, 1 slice of ham, 1 slice of American cheese, 2 slices of white bread, 4 slices of turkey breast, 1 cup of Campbell's chicken noodle soup, or 1 cup of canned vegetables. Chicken noodle soup, cup of noodles. Anyone else? Ham.
They're all the same.
They're all the same. Okay, so I hear cup of noodles and the chicken soup. So are you surprised? Cup of noodles is definitely highest, but the canned soup is not far away, 790 milligrams. And that's in 1 cup, 1 8-ounce cup, okay? Not the entire package, but 8 ounces. And if you look here, the ham and cheese sandwich, so these you might not think is bad by itself, right? But if you put it into a sandwich, it actually makes 870 milligrams of sodium. So that's close to what you should have, half of what you should have in a day, right? And so the point is it all adds up. So not all foods are high in sodium, but when you add them together, you can overeat your intake allowance easily in the day. So like this meal, you start off at breakfast with, cereal and milk. 250 milligrams of sodium. Not bad. But then when you get to lunch and you have that sandwich and the soup, it's even more than what you should have in a day, right? And then you have dinner, a piece of pizza and a salad. All that is over 3,000 calories. 3,000 milligrams of sodium. And if you eat out, who eats out here? It's okay to raise your hand. Okay, so if you eat out, I have just selected the entree choices. So it doesn't even include sides or any snacks. A sausage McMuffin with egg from McDonald's is, I'm sorry, the battery's running. Okay, so the sausage McMuffin with egg at McDonald's has 860 milligrams of sodium. A 6-inch chicken and bacon ranch melt from Subway has over 1,000. And if you eat a foot long, then that right there is your daily 2,000 milligrams of sodium. And then for dinner, you might have pepperoni pizza with some wings, and all of that together is close to 4,000 milligrams of sodium just from eating out, right? Because you have no control over what you add to the food. So that's why it's important. Yeah.
Can I just make one quick comment to this? This is based off of what the companies tell you how much sodium is in there, and they lie, or they just exaggerate. Yeah. So this is probably an underestimation.
Yeah. So you're probably getting much more than this. When after eating out, don't you feel very thirsty? You just want to drink water, right? You just want to drink something, and this is why it's the salt making you feel thirsty. So here are some tips for eating less salt. Fresh is best, okay? So try to prepare foods on your own because fresh foods have naturally lower amounts of sodium. Enjoy home prepared foods so that you get to control what you put in your food. You don't add salt, so skip the salt. Don't add salt. Add, things like herbs and spices like garlic, onions, pepper, cilantro, rosemary. Those bring out the natural flavors in the food. Don't add it in cooking. Don't use it at the table. Eat more veggies and fruits because they are naturally lower in sodium. And if you have to eat canned foods, you can run it under water to get rid of some of the salt, but still it's going to be more than if you eat fresh. And also, frozen vegetables are better choices if you can't do fresh than canned. So frozen vegetables do not have a lot of sodium generally compared to canned vegetables. And then adjust your taste buds. Your taste buds keep changing. And if you commit yourself to keeping a low sodium diet, in about 2 months, your taste buds will adapt to a lower amount of sodium. And then when you go back to eating, don't do this, but if you decide to, test it out, you'll feel like that way that you used to eat is way too salty. And then read the food label. The food label is not perfect, but it gives us a lot of information, especially for sodium. It's always listed. Find out how much salt is in there, and so that you can make a good choice. Compare different options and make the better choice. And then when you go out to eat, if you have to go out to eat, ask for low sodium foods. And a lot of places are used to people doing that because this is, more and more people are doing it. They can accommodate that request. And then pay attention to condiments. You might not realize how much sodium you're adding to food when you're using condiments. Okay, so moving on to potassium.
Can I make a,
Yes.
ketchup you said was high in sodium,
Mhm.
but it's 4 times higher in the ketchup little packages than it is in the bottle.
Wow.
4 times the amount. And I only know that because I've lost my weight because of the fight against sodium.
Yeah, oh.
And then just as I thought I was going to treat myself and go to Popeyes, of course Popeyes, but I must have added about 4 packages of ketchup because my daughter was there and we were eating badly. I had no idea that it had 4 times more, so it made me so sick on dialysis. And then when my numbers came back bad, because my numbers are always excellent, I'm like, you're tripping. I had a little bit of ketchup. I didn't use a lot. It's only because in the bottle it's bad, in the package it's worse.
It's even worse. Thank you for sharing
And
that.
don't believe me, Google it or look for yourself.
Yeah, thanks. Okay, so potassium. Potassium helps muscles and nerves communicate, and your heart is a muscle, so potassium has a big role in the way your heart works. Too much or too little can be dangerous, so it's important to keep within this range, and that's normal range is 3.5 to 5, and when you start dialysis, it's 3.5 to 5.9, so we give you a little extra leeway there. It's mostly in fruits and vegetables. It's also in dairy, nuts, and beans. So before starting dialysis, you would restrict your potassium intake based on your lab results. Some medications you take will affect your blood potassium level. Like diuretics would make it lower. Some ACEs and ARBs might, retain potassium. So it's important to treat based on your lab numbers. When you're on dialysis, hemodialysis, it's lower. You need less because if you're doing it 3 times a week, then in between treatments, your potassium can build up. So you need to restrict to 2,000 to 3,000 milligrams a day. And on PD, because you're doing dialysis every day, this is a little bit more liberalized. And for some people, they might need to take a pill to supplement because they're losing too much potassium. And after a transplant, you again want to keep it with the normal range. Some medications, transplant medications, can affect your potassium level as well. So this is a list of low potassium foods, less than 200 milligrams per serving. And I'm not going to read this out to you. It's here in the handouts for you to reference to. But the take-home point is it's really important to pay attention to the portion size, the serving amount. Because this list is based on, for the fruit, 1 serving is a cup equal to half cup fresh or canned, or 1 small piece of fruit. So if you have, 3 or 4 servings, then this, what you thought was low potassium could become high potassium. And the other point is spinach on the vegetable side. It's low in potassium when raw, but then it gets on this high potassium list when you cook it. And that's because spinach, shrinks down to very little when you cook it. So these are high potassium foods, more than 200 milligrams per serving. All right, so phosphorus. Phosphorus is a mineral that helps build healthy, strong bones, and it works together with calcium. When you have kidney disease, your kidneys cannot remove phosphorus very well, and phosphorus builds up in the body, and it leaches calcium from the bones. And this is bad for the bones because calcium keeps bones strong. So when you don't have a lot of calcium in the bones, you have weak, brittle bones that can be painful. And then this calcium that comes out of the bones, it can deposit in, your heart vessels, causing calcification and heart disease. So it's important to keep normal levels of phosphorus. Normal being 2.7 to 4.6 before dialysis, and 3.5 to 5.5 after you start dialysis. And some doctors believe that, even on dialysis, you can keep your phosphorus to a lower level is better as well. So your phosphorus needs before dialysis, your kidneys can regulate. It can get rid of the excess phosphorus until maybe late stage 3, 4, 5. And so when your blood phosphorus level goes up, that's when you should restrict. And sometimes you might need a binder for that. And on hemodialysis and peritoneal dialysis, you want to limit to 10 to 12 milligrams of phosphorus per gram of protein. So we find out phosphorus needs based on your protein needs. And after a transplant, your needs for phosphorus might be higher, and some people might even need to supplement that. So in our example, Mr. B, he needs 82 grams of protein on peritoneal dialysis, and so he should limit to 820 to about 1,000 milligrams of phosphorus a day. And like Dr. Galati said, phosphorus is so hard to control because it's in everything. It's naturally present, the organic kind of phosphorus, and this one, remember, he said that it's less bioavailable, so your body absorbs less of it. And those sources are in milk products like dairy, milk, cheese, yogurt, ice cream, and whole grains, nuts, beans, and chocolate. And then the other kind, the problematic kind, is the added phosphorus. So this is the inorganic phosphorus and is 100% absorbed in the body. Our body does a real good job at soaking all this phosphorus up. So food manufacturers add this to improve the taste and improve the shelf life. So that McDonald's Happy Meal is that way because of all the sodium and the phosphorus in there. And it's very high in dark sodas like Coke and Pepsi, in flavored waters like Gatorade, and in iced teas. Also processed foods, fast food, instant foods like instant pudding, instant jello, even instant oatmeal can have added phosphorus. So it's important, instant oatmeal. So it's important to read the food label, and in the ingredients section, it'll say if they add phosphorus. They don't say on the food label, but under the ingredients label, you want to find PHOS, the word phos, and avoid it if you can, because that's added phosphorus that our body absorbs 100% of. So eventually, even if you do a really good job at limiting your dietary phosphorus intake, you might need a little help from phosphate binders. And these binders work like sponges or magnets. They soak up the phosphorus in your GI tract before your body absorbs it. So these are the most common ones we use today. Some of them not on here have a lot of bad side effects and are not generally used today. So calcium carbonate or Tums, calcium acetate or Foslo, these are calcium-containing phosphate binders, and we'll talk a little bit about this when we get to calcium. There's cevilamine carbonate or Invella, there's lanthanum carbonate or Fosrenol, and the two newest ones are iron-based binders. There's sucroferric oxyhydroxide is Valforo, and ferric citrate is Auryxia. And your doctors will, choose one that is the best for you according to, your lab results and what you can tolerate as well.
Good question. So that my binder will suck up a little bit of phosphorus that's in the package oatmeal that I eat every day of my life?
Yes, to a certain amount, right? It does.
I only eat half a package. I can't even eat a full package.
Right, if you
it's so low.
eat it part of your meal and you're taking your binders, it will bind up the phosphorus.
Got it.
So, For calcium, calcium is a mineral that builds healthy, strong bones like phosphorus. It works together like phosphorus. The heart and nerves also needs calcium to work. But the main point of this slide is to avoid too much calcium. When we were growing up, you know, we see got milk commercials, and it's ingrained in us that we need to take a lot of calcium. But this is not the case in kidney disease. We want to, you know, because we don't know that the extra calcium that we take will go into our bones. It might go into our heart and, you know, cause heart disease that way. So normal levels is 8.5 to 10.2, and when you start dialysis, our range is from 8 to 10.2. And this is, before you start dialysis, again, we want to, you know, manage to a normal calcium level. And on dialysis, because the dialysate solution that you use to clean the blood, it has calcium in it. So we want to take that into consideration, as well as from food, from medication, and from binders. And after transplant, you may need a supplement because of the medication that you take. So food sources of calcium include dairy products, kale, broccoli, sardines. They're also fortified, so this is food manufacturers adding calcium to food. In juices, breakfast cereals, bottled water, and energy bars. They're also in meds like the phosphate binders that we talked about. They're in Tums for heartburn, so you should probably not take Tums for heartburn. There are other medications for heartburn that does not contain calcium. And in multivitamins, if you're taking a multivitamin, there's likely calcium in there. And then we talked about in the dialysate, what we use to clean your blood. So moving on to vitamins. Vitamins are essential for normal growth and activity. There are different types of vitamins. There are fat-soluble vitamins, which are not lost during dialysis. And with kidney disease, it can actually build up in the body and get to dangerous amounts. And then there are water-soluble vitamins, which are lost during dialysis, and we need to replenish them. Before starting dialysis, you can take a multivitamin if you're already taking one. And then on dialysis, we would switch you to a vitamin B complex plus vitamin C. And then after transplant, it's probably okay to take just a multivitamin. And this is what's in a renal vitamin. So vitamin B complex has these 9 vitamins in there. And it's really important to get a vitamin that your doctor recommends or your dietitian recommends, because different vitamins have different amounts of these vitamins, and they might not have all 9 of them. For example, vitamin C, you shouldn't get more than 60 to 100 milligrams in this pill a day. So if your renal vitamin has more than that, then that's not a good one to take. So some examples are Nephrovite, Renovite, and Dialyvite. And Dr. Galani talked a lot about herbal supplements, and these can be dangerous with kidney disease, and the interactions are not known and they're not well studied. And so the current evidence-based practice guidelines is not to take any herbal supplements with kidney disease. And these are some examples, specific examples. Do not use ginseng, aristolochia, feng chi, cat's claw, red yeast, rice. And these are because there's evidence or cases of causing kidney disease. And then the ones on the right can increase your potassium. And Ms. Joan, you were asking about ginger earlier.
Yes.
And then, I didn't know this, but I pulled out my guide.
Okay.
And for ginger, it says the potential problems is blood thinning properties. It can increase the effect of blood thinning agents. So that's
If you're not on blood thinning.
if you're not on, yeah. So you can definitely cook with ginger and eat the real form. Just supplements might be dangerous because, like Dr. Galani said, They're not regulated. We have no idea what's in these supplements, what they claim to contain. Okay. So the ultimate goal for many is to prepare for a transplant, right? Is to get a transplant. So these are nutrition-related things that the transplant team will review. You want to maintain a healthy weight. And there is a weight goal for transplant. You can't be higher than 38 BMI. So if you're above this, focusing on losing some of that weight gradually will help you be on the active list for transplant.
So 38 is what weight in normal numbers?
So BMI is really not an easy thing to explain. It's body mass index, and it's based on your height and your weight. So for everybody, based on your height, it's different. So, if you want an individual number for yourself, then we can talk about it.
No, I know mine. I gotta be 200 pounds. 5 more pounds on there.
Right. So if once you're listed on the transplant list, they will tell you what your weight goal is and if you need to lose weight. It's also important to control your blood sugar, and we want an A1C of less than 7 to 8%, and this is an average blood sugar of a random blood sugar of about 200. And that is because when your blood sugars aren't controlled well, then your wounds don't heal very well either. So after a surgery, you want that wound to heal well, and so they want you to have good control. And also because after a transplant, you will be taking medication that can increase your blood sugar as well. So it's important to always have good control of the diabetes. And then, of course, to optimize your nutritional stores. So that's an albumin of 4.0 or higher. We always want to aim for this because that's, protein that you have so that it can help you through this, very stressful surgery that you will have. So now we'll get into a little bit of label reading. So by a show of hands, raise your hand if you regularly read food labels. That's a lot of you, but not all of you. So my hope is that after today, everybody in here, and tell your friends and your family to read food labels, because while it's not perfect, it doesn't have potassium, it doesn't have phosphorus in it, but it does give us a lot of helpful information to help you choose better choices. Okay. So at the top, we have to really pay attention to serving size and the servings per container. If you eat 1 cup, which is the serving for this label, then everything on this list is true. But then if you have more than 1 serving, so if you have 2 cups, then you have to double everything, right? So after the serving size is calories. This is important if you're trying to gain weight or if you're trying to lose weight, because more calories will help you gain weight, less calories will help you lose weight. And then total fat, like Dr. Glani was saying, it's important to care for your heart as well, not just your kidneys. So too much fat can lead to heart disease. So we want to choose the healthy fats. What's listed here are not the healthy fats. The saturated fat and the trans fat are things you want to avoid or get smaller amounts as much as possible. The better fats are the unsaturated fats, so the mono and the polyunsaturated fats. And sometimes it is broken down, but not always. Underneath that is cholesterol, and some people look for cholesterol. And then, this is the most important, is the sodium, right? So this label has 660 milligrams of sodium in 1 serving, so that's 1 cup. If you double it, then you have 1,300 milligrams of sodium, and way too much for 1 food item. And then after that is total carbohydrates, and this is what you really want to look for when you want to control your blood sugar, because carbohydrates affect your blood sugar. And then it's broken down to 2 categories, dietary fiber and sugar. So fiber you want to aim to get more of, sugar the less is better. And finally there's protein, and this is important whether you're pre-dialysis or on dialysis, because pre-dialysis you want to find less protein. And then once you start dialysis, you want to get more protein. And then at the bottom is vitamin A, vitamin C, calcium, and iron. And the important part is to watch out for the calcium, to get less calcium. You don't need the extra kinds of calcium. So the food label is not, yes?
Is it cholesterol? Is mean fat also?
Cholesterol is a type, and cholesterol, people used to pay attention to it because, you know, we thought that it increases your blood cholesterol and then leading to heart disease if your blood cholesterol is very high. But now we actually think that it's the saturated fat that increases your blood cholesterol. So the saturated fat is actually the most important to look out for.
So now when we read the label, we don't need to pay attention to the cholesterol.
You should, just to know, you know, if it has, you know, 200 milligrams of cholesterol, it's probably better to choose something less.
But cholesterol divided into the good cholesterol and bad cholesterol.
Yes.
How can we tell?
So,
That's right.
so in food, good question. In food, they don't make that distinction. So, you know, cholesterol in foods, again, we don't think that it's directly related to the cholesterol in the blood, right?
But just less.
Just less, yes.
Then
Mhm.
below that is usually a long list of all the things they do to preserve it.
That's the perfect
How do you
point.
analyze that?
Yes, and we're going to get to it right now. That's what I was getting to. You know, food labels is not the whole picture. You have to pay attention to ingredients list as well. Is this the list that you're talking about? Okay, so because phosphorus and potassium are not listed on the food label, we have to find it. So we have to be like investigators, okay? We need to read these food labels. So everyone, can you find the added phosphorus and the added potassium? I'll give you a
Yes.
couple minutes.
Fourth line.
The fourth line. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yep, potassium, that's there.
Over.
Over,
There you go.
phosphate.
Down.
Here's
There
more
you go.
potassium. Here's more phosphate. Here's a pyrophosphate, right? And then here's a calcium. Let me see. Oh, here's a potassium. And then lots of sodium too.
That's what Gary to say, that's why my diet changed, because I went
By
after
reading
sodium.
this, yes.
By all means necessary. I could not believe that regular food that had so much sodium in it, you just don't even want to pick up the package.
Correct, yes. So that's all there. You
It's
guys
true.
all found it. So in general, I think it's important to choose foods that have less ingredients, right? More natural foods, things that you can recognize and can pronounce. Because, you know, something like this, it's so long, I don't know what half of these things are.
What was that food?
This is Boost.
Oh,
Boost.
Oh, the drink.
The drink, the nutrition.
wow.
What was it again?
Boost. Boost, the nutrition drink. Kind of like Ensure, but Boost.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Oh, and the other point is, on the ingredients label, the item, it's listed in the order of quantity. So the first thing listed is the most. So in this food, water is the major ingredient here. And then sugar. You're getting water and sugar. Sugar water.
Sugar is more sugar.
Yes. Ensure. Yeah. So yeah, so there is a product that's made special for dialysis patients. It's made by the same people as Ensure Abbott. It's called Nepro. But Ensure could be an okay supplement based on what your labs look like and based on what you want to control. And it's important to look at the ingredients as well. So we covered a lot today, but here are the take-home points. We want you to take control of your health, right? You should care most about your health more than anybody. And ask questions, get individualized instructions. Find that dietitian so you can get some individualized advice. You should understand your lab results so that you know what you need to work on and how you can get them into normal range. And of course, keep your blood pressure well controlled to decrease the further effects to the kidneys as well as, and the best way to do this is to limit your salt intake. And make good choices by reading food labels and ingredient lists, because it's impossible for dietitians to know all the foods out there, because the food manufacturers change what they put in food all the time. So when you're at the store, read the labels. Don't wait until you get home, because now you're stuck with that food. So make the choices when you are at the store. And watch out for sodium, watch out for phosphorus and potassium additives. And then, like Dr. Glani was saying, I didn't talk a lot about this today, but be active and just move. We're not asking you to run a marathon or a mile, but any physical activity you do will help. Will help you stay strong, will help your energy level. It can lower your blood sugar, lower your blood pressure. So lots of good benefits to staying active. So that's all I have today. Are there any questions? Yes.
Thank you so much.
What is your comments on 90% cocoa, dark chocolate?
Okay, so you love chocolate, don't you?
Well, 90% dark.
Okay, so chocolate has phosphorus, right? It's a phosphorus-containing food, but it's natural phosphorus. So like we said, natural phosphorus, your body won't absorb 100% of it. So that's probably a better choice than, say, the Happy Meal from McDonald's. So it's it's okay in moderation.
And you get the 90% cocoa.
Yeah, dark chocolate.
That's the best kind.
Yeah, because there's less sugar. It's more wholesome. Yeah.
I know that a lot of the binders can cause diarrhea. So do you have a recommendation as to the least problem with diarrhea in the binders?
Okay, so lots of binders can cause diarrhea. So is there anything to remedy that?
Not to remedy it, but do you have a recommendation as to the product that least causes this problem?
Okay, so product that causes the least problem. So actually, diarrhea is not a very common side effect of the binders. They normally cause constipation.
Right.
But if you're having diarrhea, it's, because it's so individualized. If you have diarrhea, I might get constipated. So it's a matter of finding the right binder with your doctor's help.